Hello and welcome to Fred Asquith on Film, aka Fred on Film, aka FoF, which is a film and TV discussion podcast starring me, Fred Asquith, that you can consume on multiple platforms: YouTube at Fred Asquith YT, TikTok, Instagram at Fred Asquith on Film. Fuck, I'm getting good at this. Yes, housekeeping done. Let's move on. Actually, got some thank yous to say. I would like to say that starting this podcast has been such a wonderful inclusion into my life. I'm so happy I did it. I was umming and ahhing for years about how to encapsulate my passion of film online. Should I do it on my regular profile, which is quite general, or should I start its own profile? Should I do a podcast? Should it just be like videos? I never knew. I never committed, and now I've committed, and it feels so fucking great to be able to share this passion with people because I'm getting this buzz of like building a community again, similar to how I get the buzz with my personal profile. And what's been mint is that mint is a Yorkshire colloquial term for good. What's been mint is that I've started to get feedback on this podcast more and more and more, and it's really started to justify the decision, you know? Because I think if I'd have like put this in and amongst my own personal profile, which if people listening don't know is just like comedy skits, lots of relationship stuff at Fred Asquith, go check it out. If I were to put it in there, it would have almost got lost amongst the melee of all other stuff. And I did try that in the past, and that's exactly what happened. But now, because it's its own thing, even though it's relatively a much smaller thing than my personal profile, it's getting like the level of love for it is growing because it's like a separate part of me. Do you know what I mean? It's like a separate entity. So people now specifically come to me and say, I really like your podcast. And that feels so good because it's quite a big commitment to commit to a podcast. I understand that. I understand it's a commitment to think, I'm going to listen to this fucking bozo talk for an hour or less than an hour, as I always pledge. And I come and go with podcasts. Like I'll have a few that, like I stopped listening to one last week that I've listened to for 7 years, or maybe even more. I won't name names because I don't want to like slag it off, but like I've listened to this one particular film podcast for a long, long time. And last week I was like, do you know what? I think it's been budged out of my weekly schedule in a way. Like I've kind of found ones that I prefer and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, point is that I think we're all kind of passing through our podcast options because we've all got lives to lead and we all haven't got like we haven't got that long to just listen to people talk at us. Like we've maybe got a walk with the dog or the commute or whatever. Like we've maybe got a maximum hour a day. And so to include me in that kind of lineup of your listening material, I feel very privileged, and I feel more privileged than someone maybe watching a 60-second skit that I've put on my personal profile. I feel equally creatively fulfilled by both of those things, but obviously feel more privileged to be part of your life for, 30, 40 minutes a week. That's really, really nice, and it's really nice for people to come up and talk to me about it. By the way, this episode is going to be a much more chatty episode because there actually aren't any films to review. I've seen Caught Stealing, but I'm embargoed on reviewing it until next week. So, just say that up top. But I've actually missed doing these chatty episodes, so I'm looking forward to going through a few topics that I've got written down, which include my favourite cinemas in London, because someone asked. Best cinema memberships, someone asked that as well. Best cinema memberships you can get out of all the brands. Talk of the Weapons sequel, which I want to touch on. Steven Spielberg film that I rewatched that I'll reveal later in the show. A lot of those kind of conversations about people listening to my pod happened last night at the Caught Stealing premiere, which, like I say, I'll review Caught Stealing next week. So the embargo for Caught Stealing lifts on Wednesday, the 27th of August. I think I'll probably try and have a review out for that day. The film itself comes out on the 29th. But anyway, I went to this premiere screening last night. It was actually called a Gala screening, and I thought, Gala screening. That it's weird that they haven't put premiere. That must mean that it's like not as kind of fancy or special as a premiere. Anyway, completely read that wrong. Gala means because I turned up and I saw one of my friends who was dressed up to the nines. He looked incredible in this suit, this pinstripe suit. And I had my little Zara jacket on, and I was like, what the fuck's going on here? And he was like, it's a gala screen. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, that sometimes means the royals are there. Like, gala is like one step above premiere. And I was like, oh, fucking hell. I look like I've just rolled out of Meadow Hall fucking shopping centre in Sheffield. But anyway, thankfully the royals weren't there, but definitely people were dressed up and all the stars were there. So this is Caught Stealing as a movie starring Zoe Kravitz, Austin Butler. It's kind of a comedy action directed by Darren Aronofsky, who you might know from directing Requiem for a Dream, Black Swan, Mother, The Whale last year. So that was it was a really nice event to go to. I saw Austin Butler. I took a picture with Austin Butler in the background, and that is on my @Fred Asquith on Film TikTok and Instagram profile. I often, when you go to these premiere events, as discussed, I'm very, very particular. Sorry, sipping my tea. I'm very particular about what seat I sit in the cinema. Long-time listeners will know I have a cinema spreadsheet of my favourite seats in every cinema in London, which I'll come on to talk about actually in a second in a slightly different angle. And when you go to these kind of events, it's often unallocated seating, so there's like a mad rush. But the more special ones, there's allocated seating, and therefore you're at the mercy of the PR team, marketing team, just kind of plopping you somewhere. Anyway, I got seat C19 this time, which is the best seat in the Odeon Lux Leicester Square, where I was. Well, it's pretty much the best seat. The best seat is D19, but I'll take C19. You know what I mean? As a random selection goes, it's pretty fucking bang on. So I was absolutely buzzing. Anyway, lo and behold, as medium-term listeners will know, I've been in a terrible run of disturbances during cinema screenings. I had the worst screening of all time during Bring Her Back. You can go back and listen to that episode. When I rewatched Weapons, you go back and listen to that episode. There was another one that I'm forgetting. Basically, cinema etiquette that is degrading in modern society. Anyway, so I sat in C19. I was like, fucking perfect. Let's fucking go. And the seat next to me, C18, was empty for a long, long time, up until the very, very, very start of the announcement of the movie, because they got up the cast and Darren Aronofsky came up and everything. And then this guy sits next to me and is absolutely hyper, right? It's a fancy event. Like, we're all buzzing to be there. Austin Butler's coming out, and it's brilliant to be there. But this guy is off the chain buzzing, right? And he will not like sit still. And this is during the announcement. And I'm like, before the film started, I'm like, cool, it is an exciting event. Go for it, right? And then during the film, that doesn't stop. So he's extremely physically reactive to the things happening in the film. There's lots of like hands to the head, looking at me. We've never met. Looking at me, looking at people next to him, like, oh my God, like saying things out loud. Bro, why does this keep happening to me? And then the person to his left kept going on Instagram. Why does this keep happening to me? I get the best fucking seat in the house, and still I'm next to Mr. Disturb Your Film. That was his name, apparently. I asked him at the end. I said, what's your name? He said, Mr. Disturb Your Film. Oh, I'm Fred. And he said, yeah, you can call me Gunner. Gunner Disturb Your Film. So, that was fine. Actually, don't think that affected my viewing of Caught Stealing, either positive or negative, because what was really funny was I kind of zoned out of him like flailing around, and I was like, oh, I must be like kind of really engrossed in this film. Anyway, I looked to my left and he was like this. Like fully decked out, completely unconscious, on the recliner in the Lux, sleeping. And I was like, oh my God, he peaked so hard before the film started. He was 110%. Woo, like woo when Austin Butler came out, and so was I. And when the film started, oh my God, looking at me, looking around, hands up, wailing around, flailing around, and then fully unconscious. I was like, thank fuck for that. And it was so loud in there. It's Dolby Atmos in there, and it's quite like a loud film. So every time like someone got punched, he was like, and then fell asleep again. Brilliant stuff. Just brilliant stuff. Just brilliant stuff. So speaking of which, I just want to skirt over the fact someone messaged me saying, "What are your fave cinemas in London?" And so I guess I never really kind of went into my cinema spreadsheet of how many screens have I been to in London now? 48 screens, not cinemas as in branches, but the screens within those branches. So I'll have like Curzon Soho screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, and the best seat in each of those because I'm a mentalist, okay? And I like this stuff. And so I've got like each row will be cinema, for example, Curzon Soho, screen 1, what I saw there. So in this particular case, it was Honora. Where I sat for Honora, I sat in H11. And the perfect seat would be E11, right? So I'm like coming home and I'm writing where would be the optimum viewing position in this cinema because I'm insane, right? And going to the cinema with me is extremely fucking stressful because I'm constantly calculating whether I'm sat in the correct seat. And I only settle down when the film starts. And that must be so annoying for my wife, my darling wife. And it also must be so annoying for my mate Zohair, who I go to these screenings a lot with. I went to the Caught Stealing one last night. Sat in C19, I was looking behind me and D19 was free and I was saying, should we move back to D19? And he was like, just chill. Like, it's fine. Like, my mind is always ticking. So irritating. I irritate myself. Anyway, the guy next to me is like, fucking hell, this guy calm down about the seat. Anyway, and then there's another column which says cinema rating, which is like basically a rating of the technical... proficiency of the screen, so sound and image. That's out of 5 being the best. And then we have a rating for comfort. That's also out of 5. That's obviously based on like padding, recliner, legroom, aircon, things like that. And then we average those out for an overall rating. I also have a column to denote if the trailer length is particularly long or short, so I don't miss the start. And I also have a column for notes, any other miscellaneous notes. And so, if you'd like to know the best cinema in London, it is indeed the Odeon Lux Leicester Square Screen 1, which I was in last night to watch Caught Stealing. Isn't that amazing? I've seen loads of films there. I've seen Sinners, Alien Romulus, Furiosa, Fall Guy. I tend to go see films there that I want a good auditory experience, but the visual experience doesn't essentially need to be like IMAX or 70mm or something like that. Which is why kind of like Alien Romulus is the best example of like, or probably Caught Stealing as well, of like what you want to see at the Odeon Lux Leicester Square Screen 1, because it's a sizable screen. You get the scale, but it's not 70mm, it's not IMAX. But it's Dolby Atmos, and it's the sound system there is like you're in a fucking club. It's so good, and they've got these recliners. It's very good. Anyway, so that's number 1. Number 2 is kind of my little secret, actually. Sorry, sip of my tea. Got a ginger and turmeric tea today. The View West End, so it's also in Leicester Square. Screen 5 and Screen 7. And the reason why I join those together is because they are... I know you think I'm fucking mental right now, but what are we all here for other than to profess our passion for this fucking thing? This art form that is film, okay? Screen 5, Screen 7, they are basically identical screens on top of one another on different floors at the Odeon Lux Leicester Square, and they are delightful. Again, Dolby Atmos, recliner seat, but a slightly more intimate feel, like you're slightly more stacked in, you're looking kind of across rather than up like in the Lux. And these are all nuanced factors that I use in order to decide what film I want to see at what cinema, right? So like if you told me there's a new Robert Eggers movie coming out, where am I going? Well, I'm thinking, okay, Robert Eggers, it's more artful. I maybe want a more well-behaved audience. I maybe want to kind of I don't want to really lounge in a Robert Eggers film. It's not quite a loungy film. It's more of like I'm a kind of chin-strokey film viewer. I don't want to sit up and be alert. So I'd probably go to a Curzon because they don't have recliners, but they do have very comfortable screens. They've got good leg room, but it's very intimate. You know, this is what my point is. There's a lot of things ticking over when I'm thinking about where to go see something. And so therefore I built this spreadsheet, and off the back of this spreadsheet yesterday, I tried to build a GPT, a chat GPT. You know, you can like build a GPT to speak a certain way and to answer questions in a certain way, and it will always just do that. You can configure it and then publish it. So I've published the Fred on Film : one seat to rule them all GPT, which is picking the best cinema and cinema seat in London for any given film. So theoretically, you'd go to it and say, I want to go see the new Nolan film. Where shall I see it? It'll walk you through where you're traveling from, the screen, the seat, the timings, blah, blah, blah. It's not perfect yet. I'm still in testing phase. If anyone would like to have a go on my GPT, please do DM me at Fred Asquith on Film on Instagram. So the top 10 screens... Sorry, do you know what? I'm going to do the top 10 cinema branches in London. Odeon Lux Leicester Square, View West End Leicester Square, the View Islington, which was recently refurbed with Dolby Atmos and recliners, the Odeon Lux and Dine Islington. So that's a really intimate screen where they bring you food, which is obviously for a very specific type of movie. For example, really long movies or really kind of silly movies. So, for example, I went there for like Napoleon is a great example because it's quite silly, but it's also very long. So you're probably going to get hungry in the second half. So you can be like, oh, bring me a bowl of nachos in the second half of Napoleon, please. And then once I went to see Killers of the Flower Moon there, and I was like, bring me an ice cream half an hour from the end. And I was absolutely fucking stuffed because before that, they'd brought me a 3-course meal and didn't even want the ice cream. But basically, that's a great option. We've also got the Odeon Lux West End. Oh, sorry, I've already said that. The BFI IMAX, obviously you've seen 70 mils there. Nolan, last saw Oppenheimer there, as well as a few other like reruns, Interstellar, things like that. The Cineworld Leicester Square, I know they're all very central. It's because the central ones are the best spec. Like that's why they're the central ones. They put a lot of investment into them, right? So the Cineworld Leicester Square, I hate the IMAX in there. It's the most uncomfortable screen I've ever been in my life. But the super screen there is great. Super screen is basically just a giant normal aspect ratio screen. Fucking huge. Great sound. And then we get into the Curzon. So my favourite Curzon is the Curzon Aldgate. My real secret weapon when it comes to a screen to go see a film in that I really care about is Curzon Aldgate Screen 2. I think there's 3 screens there. Maybe there's even more, but screens 1, 2, and 3 are all really good. But specifically screen 2, right, is a sumptuous screen because you're like, it's a really weird orientation where like your eye level with the middle of the screen, and you're like really close to it. So it's kind of like quite a banked set of seats, and then the screen is really close to the front row. So you're kind of up against the screen, which sounds awful, but the effect is like, it's hard to describe, but it has an effect of like you get the scale and the intimacy because it's not a massive screen. It's quite an intimate, like it's got like 100 seats in there or something. But because of the orientation of the seats, it feels like you're right up against it. So you can go see, like I saw Robert Eggers' Nosferatu in that screen. It was the perfect combination of screen and movie. I sat there and I was like, oh, I've just got it right this time, because you have the scale and the immersion, but you have the intimacy and a very well-behaved audience. If you want to see a film, basically any film apart from like a 70mm IMAX film, in the perfect conditions, go to Curzon Aldgate Screen 2. Now that is enough of me listing screens, but I just want you to know that someone asked me that and now I've delivered. Someone else, so I wrote the username down for this person. So Oitswan on YouTube wanted a discussion on the best cinema memberships available. And that's a really good question. I actually own, how many memberships? Well, technically, how many do I have? 1, 2. Yeah, technically 3 cinema memberships, but only 2 paid. So the one that isn't paid is View, because View doesn't have a paid membership. It just has like a sign up and you can get refunds and some perks and stuff. And the 2 I have are Odeon Limitless and Curzon VIP. So if I were to rank, what do we want from a cinema membership? We want like, we want free tickets. We want maybe some free snacks or discounted snacks. We maybe want some priority booking. We want the ability to refund seats, things like this. And on that basis, because I have tried in my time all of the cinema memberships, so there's Picture House, Everyman, View, Cineworld, blah, blah, blah. The best one is Odeon Limitless. And why? Because it's Limitless is the key. It's literally as many fucking tickets as you can be asked to go see, right? And what I love about it is, if you book a ticket and then don't turn up and the system recognizes that the QR code hasn't been scanned, you get penalized for that. And I like that because it means that people are intentionally using these limitless tickets, right? If you didn't have that kind of parameter, people would just book seats and then not go. They would like hoard seats, right? Anyway, so it's as many films as you want. There's a slight downside to that, which is that if you want to book a really, really, really premium seat, like the Odeon Lux Leicester Square recliners, I think you have to do like a £3 surcharge or something like that. But it's $19.99 a month. A surcharge for the odd luxury seat, I think, is fine. Like, you'd have to pay a surcharge for 3D, but that doesn't fucking happen anymore. The second best one is Curzon VIP. So Curzon VIP, you get, I believe it's 4 free tickets a month, which, to be fair, is more than anyone would need anyway, unless you have a podcast and you're trying to review way too many films for your own good, like me. But Curzon VIP is really good because it's 4 free tickets and it's no surcharges, just vibes. It's literally get the fucking free tickets and enjoy yourself. Like, you don't have to pay booking fees or anything. It's just free, right? And also, you can also get members booking windows. So like Curzon are really good for getting films early, like previews for members only. So it'll be like BFI screening of so-and-so film that's going to come out in like 3 weeks. Like Eddington, for example, was screened at the Curzon like last week or something, and I couldn't get in. I think Cineworld does have a Cineworld Unlimited card or something like that. I've never liked Cineworld cinemas consistently enough to warrant a Cineworld card, so I don't know enough about the benefits of the perks themselves. But I think if you ultimately, it just comes down to like what cinema have you got near you, and kind of just go for that one. But if you are in London, it is worth thinking about like the best branches to go to, and I think for me it's without doubt the Odeons and the Curzons. Like I say, the View is free. It just gives you the chance to refund tickets. The worst paid one, I think, is Everyman, because it's pretty extortionate and they treat you like a kind of community member. But the perks for that are there's a lot of food related perks, and also I don't think Everyman cinemas are good enough to invest in as like a regular attendee. Because if you're buying a kind of unlimited pass to a cinema, you're probably going to be some form of cinephile or like just really fucking bored, or both. And the Everyman cinemas, they're just not up to spec to like commit to like, yeah, I'm going to see every single film at an Everyman. Like everything from Nolan's Odyssey to like fucking Materialist or something. Like it's just, it's not going to fit every film. And so I just, for that price, I can't remember exactly what the price is, but I know it's pretty extortionate. It just doesn't quite work for me. So there you go. There you fucking go. So there's been murmurings that, so I'm about to spoil Weapons. For anyone who hasn't seen Weapons, just go see it. Pause this podcast, come back later, or skip forward 5 minutes. I hate it when podcasters always say like, oh, I'm going to spoil this, skip forward 5 minutes, because I'm like, how the fuck do you know how long you're going to talk about it? I might skip forward 5 minutes And you might be like, and Bruce Willis is a ghost. Do you know what I mean? So, anyway, skip forward 5 minutes. So, spoiler. Weapons. At the end of Weapons, we've got the witch Aunt Gladys is certainly gone from this earth. So she's played by Amy Madigan. Real standout character in the movie. And there's murmurings that there's going to be a prequel of The Witch and Gladys. Or it says sequel, but I think that's what I wrote down in my notes. But it is prequel. A prequel of The Witch and Gladys, and like probably de-aging Amy Madigan a little bit and how she got to where she got to and blah, blah, blah. I just hate this idea because I think I don't think prequels and sequels necessarily have to tarnish originals. Like if, Alien 3 is not good, does it make Aliens bad? No. Toy Story 4 is not as good as Toy Story 3. Does it make me like Toy Story 3 less? No. Like if they're kind of incidental sequels, I think it's fine. I think what does affect a franchise is if it's like part of the expected canon of that franchise. So what's a good example of this? Like this isn't true, but like let's say if Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring and Two Towers slapped, which they do, and then hypothetically Return of the King was awful, that would tarnish the first two because it was part of the like canonical plan for that franchise, right? Whereas I think if it's like we made Toy Story 3 and it did really well, so let's make another one, I think that doesn't matter so much. So like if they made a Sinners sequel and that wasn't very good, that wouldn't bother me really. But if it's like, oh, we're planning like Dune, right? So if Dune Part 3 sucks, that would tarnish Part 1 and Part 2. Just in my head. I'm not saying it changes the films themselves. Do you get what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that this prequel proposition would tarnish the first Weapons movie. But then again, it is quite a specific example of like diving into the prequel storyline of a mysterious character in the original film is quite a specific case of like, don't fucking do that, please. Because Aunt Gladys is, the reason why she works is because she takes you off guard and off balance with the fact that she's introduced to you as a character of to induce fear, but then as the film creeps on, she becomes kind of a quite comedic character, like the way she's talking to the headmaster in the head teacher's office, and she's trying to work out like who's complaining about the treatment of Alex and whatever, and she goes, "Who made the complaint?" I've been repeating that to my darling wife so much in the last week. Who made the complaint? I love that line. Who made the complaint? I love the way she says it. And then she starts to become like a comedic character, right? And if you do a prequel of that character, it doesn't change the original experience of the film Weapons, but it does change the universe. It does change the like mystery of the character, and I don't necessarily need to know where she came from or why she got there or how she learned to do what she does or anything like that. And I fear for my children and their children and their children's children as to like if they're growing up in a world with Weapons and then Weapons : Origins, right? Or Aunt Gladys. We're going into like a Conjuring style kind of Conjureverse. Then it is going to taint future people's viewing of the original movie, right? Unless it slaps, in which case I hope it does. Anyway, I have another idea because I Weapons is doing well at the box office. I understand why they're going to want to do another one. A better idea, I think, is a better idea anyway, which is that in the final monologue, the final voiceover with the little girl voiceover, she says, "Alex was sent off to her other aunt. I've heard she's a nice one," right? That's the sequel, surely. The other aunt is not nice. Done. Because that wouldn't affect the original film whatsoever. You'd just be like, oh, Alex has fucked up aunts. That's funny. Like it's part of the humor of the movie that, like, oh my God, Alex, his aunts are just fucking nutcases. Alex went off to be with his other aunt. I think she's a nice one. That to me is almost like intentionally written to leave the door open for a sequel about that aunt. But anyway, that's just, what do I know? Little old me, what do I know? I've got my fly swatter next to me on this episode, by the way, just in case any fuck off. Can you hear that? Oh, it's a little electricity bit. Fuck off. Okay. I rewatched Bridge of Spies this week, the Steven Spielberg film Bridge of Spies. Just like when I rewatched The Post recently, Steven Spielberg just shits out bangers without even trying. Like, especially in his later career, he's not making things as transcendental as Saving Private Ryan, Catch Me If You Can, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, E.T. He's not making those like all-timers right now. But he's so consistently making bangers effortlessly, it's not spoken about enough. If you think about his run, I'm going to have to get his little filmography up. Oh my God, I'm doing it. Spielberg filmography is probably my most visited Wikipedia article because I just love marveling at what this fucker does. Listen to this run since, let me pick my point where I'm starting here. Lincoln, right? Lincoln 2012, nominated for Best Picture. Really, really good biopic. Incredible performance by Daniel Day-Lewis. Bit slow, bit long, has its faults, but banger, right? Bridge of Spies, absolute banger. BFG, less said about that, the better. The Post, banger. Ready Player One, less said about that, the better. West Side Story, so underrated, so brilliant. I loved my experience in the cinema watching that. Odeon Lux and Diane Islington, if you're interested. The Fablemans, absolute banger, right? Even going back to like Munich, War of the Worlds, The Terminal, like these are all films in what you'd say is his latter career, since sort of 2004 kind of thing, where like, no, they're not Jurassic Park, but it's just so easy for this guy. It's so easy for this guy. And when you compare him to his peers, George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola, and you might say that's like not very fair to compare him to compare Lucas and Coppola to Spielberg, because like they've gone down different avenues in their own way, and George Lucas doesn't need the money and whatever. But just let's just compare. Just humor me for a second. Did you see Megalopolis? Like, that's what's supposed to happen to filmmakers in their senile old age. They're self-funding absolute piles of trite, like Megalopolis. Spielberg's just quietly making bangers. And right now he's making a science fiction film about fucking aliens. Written by David Koepp. Give it to me. Now, back on Bridge of Spies, I think one thing really holding Bridge of Spies back for me, and holding this latter career Spielberg back for me, is that the visual palette is far too samey for me. If you were to compare, so Janusz Kaminski has been his cinematographer, I think, for every film since Schindler's List. There might be one or two that's not, but honestly, like it's either 90% or 100%. Since Schindler's List, Janusz Kaminski, obviously an incredible cinematographer. He worked with him first on Schindler's List, and obviously made an incredible bond on that movie, and have continued ever since. And Spielberg likes his longtime collaborators. I just think when you look at kind of Saving Private Ryan onwards, you see the development of this visual palette and visual style of Kaminski with Spielberg that is so distinctive and so samey and quite one note. And I'm specifically talking about bleached out, blown out backlighting, right? And lighting through windows that is bleached out and blown out. If you remember, like, it's kind of got this like hazy, sort of like soft focus, bleached lighting. And I think, I don't know if I'm describing this correctly, but I hope you can picture what I mean. It gives a kind of dreamy aesthetic to all the movies, which really works for AI. It really works for Minority Report. It really works for, I think, Warhorse. And it really works for West Side Story, like these kind of genre-based movies that are more stylistic, I think it really works as a stylistic quirk. But I think it doesn't work for movies that are maybe more mature, grounded, or intellectual. So we're talking Munich, Lincoln, The Post, Bridge of Spies. It comes across as like, I don't know, like hacky, I've already used the word trite, but a bit trite, a bit like student filmy. I don't know what the word is for that though, and like not in keeping with the intellect of the story and the subject matter. Like you're literally lighting Munich and Bridge of Spies the same way you're lighting like action blockbuster style things like Minority Report and whatnot. It just doesn't sit right with me. And it's and you know, like when a chef, let's imagine hypothetically a chef is just like giving you dish after dish after dish, and you're like, they all taste great, but it's all just very salty. They taste great because they're all very salty. I'm getting really salty broccoli, really salty fish pie. I'm getting a salty this, and you're just like, I like salt, but there's no nuance to this. When I see that there's a stylistic similarity across a 20-year stretch of movies, that bothers me because I'm like, okay, you're not adapting to the subject matter and you're not adapting to the tone and the genre and the themes. You're just applying your visual quirks onto everything, a one-size-fits-all. And that's not to say cinematographers can't have styles. Like, you know a Deakins film when you see it. You know a Greg Fraser film when you see it. You know a Linus Sandgren film when you see it. But you know a Hoyte van Hoytema film when you see it. But I think that all those people I've just mentioned do adapt within that style depending on the genre and themes and tone. And I don't think that Janusz Kaminski does that. So whilst I do think Bridge of Spies slaps, because it's Tom Hanks in a role that really suits him, Mark Rylance in a role that he really suits him, but he ends up doing the same role 15 times for the next 10 years. And a really interesting story, like quite a kind of downbeat espionage story. Like it's not crazy really, but Spielberg just makes it engaging. I've forgotten what the start of that sentence was, but basically it's a very, very enjoyable film. And that cinematography aspect is just one thing that really kind of irks me about it. So I give that film on rewatch 3.5 out of 5. It makes me cry, actually. Probably in the upper side of latter era Spielberg. So give it a watch. I recommend it. I'd say actually on that stretch that I just mentioned, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Tintin, Warhorse, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, BFG, Post, Ready Player One, it's definitely the best one within there. So it was the best one for a 10-year stretch. And then we've got West Side Story and The Fabelmans, and the jury's out on that one. We can debate that one till the Spies come home. So next week, we are going to have our Caught Stealing review. There's a lot of films coming out next. There's a lot of films coming out next week. We've got Eddington, we've got Caught Stealing, Eddington, Life of Chuck, which is the Tom Hiddleston Stephen King adaptation, and Sorry Baby, which is, I think it's an A24 like comedy drama. Anyway, I'm not going to be able to have reviews of all 4 of them, but like also if I'm struggling to find screenings for these things in central London, I also think it's not as important to review them as urgently, because like they're obviously not that available if I'm struggling to find screenings for them. And also I've got a fucking life to lead. Like it's actually quite, now I'm really enjoying keeping up with the film releases, but it's actually quite hard as well when they get thick and fast like this. So I'm going to commit to seeing Caught Stealing and Eddington, and I'm going to see what I can do with Life of Chuck and Sorry Baby. Thanks very much for joining me on this episode, this chatty episode of at Fred Asquith on film, TikTok, Instagram. Thank you for all your kind words, and thank you for being here. I'm really enjoying building this community, and thank you for coming up to me and saying that you like it. That makes me want to continue. I'm going to continue anyway, even in spite of it. I was continuing before you were here. I'm going to continue after you're here. Sorry, I even said that. I don't even mean that. This is for me, not you. Cool. Thank you, and goodbye.